Hi, everyone. Welcome to our PaaS App Dev Virtual Group webinar. Today's session is Advancing Data Warehouse ETL Development with Premium SSIS Components. We are excited that you could join us today for another community presentation. Our live webinars are delivered by expert speakers from the PaaS community or the IT community at large. The session will be recorded, and a link to the content will be posted to the PaaS App Dev website after the event. My name is Carnegie Johnson. I am a co-leader for the PaaS App Dev Virtual Group. I'm always excited about volunteering in our community and learning from peers. I do my best to facilitate great content and a fun learning environment. You may learn more about me and our leadership team by visiting our PaaS App Dev website. Before we begin the presentation, and after a couple more intro slides, I will hand it over to our presenter. Now, if you require technical assistance, please type your question into the question pane and someone will assist you. The question pane is always where you may ask any questions throughout the presentation. Feel free to enter your question at any time. When we get to the Q&A portion of our session, I will read your unanswered questions aloud to the speaker. You may be able to zoom in on the presentation content by using the zoom button located at the top of the presentation window. Please note that there will be a short evaluation at the end of the webinar. Your feedback is most important to us, so please take a moment to complete the evaluation. The evaluation form will appear in a new web browser window. I'd like to take a moment to thank our virtual group sponsor, Soaring Eagle Database Consulting. This webinar is made possible by sponsor support. Sponsorships are the reason this event is available free of charge to all of us. If you would like to learn more about our sponsors or you would like to become a sponsor, please visit our App Dev Virtual Group homepage where sponsors are listed and respective contact information is available. All right, so after the presentation, we are giving away $150 worth in Amazon gift cards via a prize, a random prize drawing. So we will draw 3 random winners to receive each a $50 US Amazon gift card. To be eligible for the drawing, you have to attend, and if you're listening to this, most likely live, you're attending, and register and complete the closing survey. You may also increase your odds of winning and earn bonus entries for the drawing by doing one of the following optional activities. Join our LinkedIn group at the link that's here in the slide, and I'll post this in our chat window as well. And send a LinkedIn message with that text and your registration, your webinar registration email. You may also follow us on Twitter and at that URL that's listed in the slide, and also send a direct message via Twitter with the text that's noted with your registration email. Now, if you've already joined our LinkedIn group and you already follow us on Twitter, you can still get the bonus entries. You just simply need to send the message with that text and your GoToWebinar registration email. Official drawing rules will be available upon request. Presenters, sponsors, organizers, moderators, and their respective immediate family are not eligible for the prize drawing. Okay, the PaaS Summit Conference is our community's flagship event. It is happening November 6th through November 9th in Seattle, Washington. PaaS Summit is the largest conference for technical professionals who leverage the Microsoft Data Platform. Attend and immerse yourself in deep dive technical sessions, learn best practices, and discover new tips and tricks. For more information and to register, please visit our App Dev Virtual Group homepage, and you can save $150 at the time of your conference registration by entering the respective code noted in the slide, and I'll also put the code again in our chat window for everyone. Okay, now our presenter. Our presenter for this PaaS App Dev Virtual Group webinar is Daniel Kai. Daniel is a software developer specializing in .NET and business intelligence solution development. He is the principal developer at Kingsway Soft, a leading provider for SSIS-based data integration solutions. His areas of expertise include enterprise application design and development, CRM, XRM solutions, business intelligence solutions, collaboration and content management solutions, e-commerce solutions, object-oriented analysis and design, and enterprise integration patterns and designs. Daniel is a Microsoft Business Solutions MVP and a frequent IT community contributor. Without further delay, it is my delightful privilege to welcome Daniel Kai and his presentation of Advancing Data Warehouse ETL Development with Premium SSI Components.
Thank you, Kanaji. I'd like just to briefly add a quick note about my profile. I'm a developer out of my heart. I go day by day, every day, focus on ETL and business intelligence and .NET development. So my language, I'm terrible speaker. So in that sense of you probably have to bear with me from time to time because I don't speak native language, native English. My native language probably is better to say I speak C# better than English. So this is today's session. We try to cover some basic ground of the data warehouse development, but particularly from the ETL perspective, and how we make your life easier using some premium data flow component. So let's first have a quick look of ETL, what ETL role has in the data warehouse project. So ETL actually plays a fundamental or very important role in your data warehouse project, in the sense of it's the initial stage of your data warehouse preparation. So in terms of the data warehouse design, your first question you would ask, where your data come from? And your data could come from, most likely come from your transactional database system, including CRM, ERP, maybe some other enterprise applications. Those transactional database system is usually designed to be transactional in the sense of to have very high throughput, but a very normalized relational data model. So that type of data model, it's not going to give you good performance when you want to build analytics engine against this data storage. So in order to make it work with data warehouse for analytics or whatever other purposes that you may need with data warehouse, you would need to transform data into what the data warehouse typically requires. So in this transformation process, ETL is your best friend to achieve that. So in today's session, we mostly focus on the SSIS-based component, but SS is one of the option in terms of using as an ETL tool to facilitate data warehouse preparation. And as soon as your data is pushed into data warehouse, then you can start to consume the data in a different way. You can use the SQL Server and analysis services. You can use Power BI. You can use the SQL Server reporting service to deliver your business intelligence to your team. So from comparing to your source system, the data warehouse data is typically very analytic and denormalized based on the dimensional data model that we're going to cover a little bit later. So the dimensional data model that we previously just mentioned, it's designed for efficient query and analytics. Analytics often is referred to OLAP, online analytical platform. So the dimensional data model comes with two aspects. The fact tables, usually you have fact tables, you have dimension tables. The fact table is the central of your schema. It's kind of it contains many of business data in the sense of you can be used as a matrix. And from fact table, you can join to dimension table. That dimension table would give you the intelligence of in which condition or what kind of criteria deliver what kind of performance. And then you have the dimension tables. Dimension tables contains text and descriptive data that describe the certain conditions or certain situations of your business data, how the business transaction happened. And also, compared to the fact table, it has many columns but very few rows. It's just say dimension. It's like from .NET programming perspective, it's probably related. You can relate it to enum type of variables. So dimension table, it's denormalized, and it's designed for the error handling. So let's talk about a little bit the dimensional model. So in the dimensional model design, you want to ask those questions that what are around your business data in terms of when the transaction happens. I'm just giving an example of business transactions and where it happens and why it happens and what happened, and also who is involved. And then in the middle, then it's actually about the fact of your business transaction. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So in this slide, we talk about two big, most important design approach for your data warehouse modeling. So you have the star schema you can choose, which is the most common seen in data warehouse project. But on the right side, you can see there's a snowflake schema. This is where you could see that's a division of star schema in the sense of it breaks down further with some of your dimensions. So like say, giving example in this diagram on the right side, you have a store dimension. The store dimension further break down into city and region, state, and the country. So when you do analytics on the sales business data, if you ever have a situation that you want to do analytics on the country level, you have to do all the way join from store to the country. So the problem is your performance could sacrifice. So in most typical data warehouse solutions, you would want to choose the star schema because it simplifies your database schema, but also give you better performance. Just giving that the perspective for the data dimension, store dimension, you can break it up into a dimension that directly attached to your fact table. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So we set up a little bit of convention for usually when you have a data warehouse project, you want to have certain naming conventions used across your project, so you don't get confused, and the object in your database table, or they deliver the messages or what they want, what the purpose of that field or that table is. So typically we recommend, or it's industry common practice, is to have a distinguish between the fact table and dimension table. So you can prefix the table with a fact or dim in whichever way like you prefer. Just have some differentiation particularly between the dimension table and the fact table. And from Microsoft in SQL Server, in SQL Server practice, most people would prefer camel case. But if you have a different database storage, that could be different story. But camel cases give you better readability. And also, it's from best practice perspective, usually for data warehouse, we generally recommend you use a surrogate key. That gives you better performance, but but for some of the data warehouse solution, you may not exactly using surrogate key. It works probably fine, but it's generally surrogate key give you better flexibility and better performance. So let me try to talk a little bit about the dimension aspects of the particular dimension tables. So one of the most important aspects from data warehouse project is to track how you track or manage dimension data change. So it's one of the fundamental approach or fundamental philosophy in the data warehouse solutions is to use a terminology called slowly changing dimension. The reason is dimension data should not freely change frequently, and that's why the industry refers as a slowly changing dimension approach. This is as we mentioned, it's a very important aspect for data warehouse implementation and design. We're going to talk about how you're going to manage it as the slowly changing dimension in the efficient way in the SSIS. So let's cover a little bit of basic background of this slowly changing dimension. So the most important aspect is the attribute type, the field type. So attribute type, it comes with three different types, three fundamental types. It's a fixed attribute. So some of the fixed attributes just say that dimension table should never change. Just like say, like agenda of the dimension in the dimension table. You could always just say male or female, that type of thing. I just give you an example. That may not be a perfect example, but just giving you, that's one of the fixed attribute. And then you have changing attribute that changes, like somebody's email that may change from time to time, or maybe that's his job title could change from time to time. That could be a changing attribute. There's also the historical attribute. That is the attribute or that is a type of data, the dimension data that can change from time to time, but that kind of change should be captured with the historical information about every change happen. Okay, so like say we're going to talk about it later in the demo, but this give you a big just general picture about what kind of change you should expect from your data warehouse project. So let's first talk about it in the out-of-box slowly changing dimension component. So this is offered by SS platform. So the biggest advantage is this component is it's a wizard-based configuration. So you walk through a few steps and get the component populated. It does come with certain limitations. It's one of the big limitations is it requires OLEDB connections only. So you can only work with OLEDB connection, and also it's also a row by row writing. In the sense of row by row writing, it's kind of giving you a not so great performance when you deal with a large quantity of data. But generally speaking, dimension table is not big. It may not be a big issue, and also it doesn't use the surrogate key. That's one of the limitations. Let me pull up my environment so I can show you what it looks like. Let's come back to the out-of-box SCD component. So I already prepared the source because just to save the time. My source is it's my transactional database table, but I already put a query that it kind of joined to make it become a dimensional data. Then it can click the slowly changing dimension component. It brings up a wizard that I can work through. So in this case, we are working with a dimension table. This is my target dimension table. In this dimension table, you can see we have email address from the input. And also we have national ID number, first name, last name. And in this window, we need to specify which field is going to be a business key field. So the reason for that is as the SCD component relies on this key field to generate a SQL script to update or insert a record into your dimension table. Okay, and this, let's just say this is a page to specify the key field, and then we click the next page to define what are the changing field here available. So you have the right now we have a total of 3 fields showing, because this is pretty much what I previously have configured in the way they have picked the 4 field, but you could possibly add more field if you need to. Okay, let me see. So in the case of the email address, let me see this. In the sense that the email address could change from time to time, you can just mark that as a, let me start again, because this is the email address is a changing attribute, and also the phone number is another changing attribute, but it looks like the third field is called title field. This, we think we need to track the change of this field. Then we make it as a historical attribute. So when we say this is a historical attribute, the SS would handle it differently from those changing attributes. Because when you generate a script, it's going to generate a SQL script that would actually mark the current dimension data record as retired, and then create a new dimension record. Okay, then you move to the next step. Then you click next again, and because it involves a historical attribute, so you need to specify in which column or which field you need the SCD component put in a start date and end date. And also, what would it be the end date when the component try to mark one of the existing current dimension record as a retire. Okay, then next go to the next step, and then once you click finish, you will see it populate a bunch of components that does the job. So on the left side, you can see the historical insert, and also let me see historical. Let's just quickly walk you through the historical insert. It's basically to retire this record, existing dimension historical record, and then you have the new input that goes to together with this updated with this historical attribute, and then you actually it does an insert to the dimension table at the end. And all the we have two other outputs. So that's changing attribute update, and also the inferred member update as well. So the idea is the wizard generate a bunch of the component to facilitate this writing, and if you ever want to trick it, or maybe sometime later you're gonna make a different make ever any change, it would regenerate the whole package, regenerate the whole task. That can be sometimes can be distracting in the sense of can break. If you ever have anything attached or you have some special things that you implement, then your change will be lost as soon as you run this result again. Okay, let's go back to the slide again. So in comparison, we offer a premium slowly changing dimension component, which this is a component that we offer at Kinsoft. We developed in the sense to try to simplify this whole concept and make your life a lot easier. So basically the idea is to take two input, the current dimension, we're going to talk about it later. Fundamentally, we offer a much better usability. And we support any data sources within the SS pipeline, and also we support we fully leverage surrogate key. And also we can immediately write to a new .NET connection without having to go through those OLEDB connections. Let me just go through that quickly, show you. So I already prepared a dimension table that we read from the current dimension table to read the current data from the dimension table. And then we have other side, we read from the transaction database to read the real transactional data. So what I'm going to do is going to grab the premium slowly changing dimension component here. And then I connect to those two input. I need to specify this is my current dimension. Okay, this is kind of my base. And then I drag this, that means this is my new dimension data. Okay, and then with the component, in this component, we try to, it looks crowded, but it's actually making your life a lot easier in the sense of everything is done within a single page or a few pages in this component. So first thing, you need to identify what field is going to be your business key field. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to map the national ID number field and mark this as business key. Okay, and then for other keys, so for other field, this is actually my surrogate key because this is I didn't show the schema, but this is identity field, so it's kind of my surrogate key. So I can first pick that as a surrogate key, and then I can say this is a changing attribute. Email address could change from time to time, and then I can say we don't have anything on this field. Let me see, we do have phone number. Then we can say this could be something could change from time to time as well. And then we can say this title field could be historical attribute. And when we do that, we do need to map a field. And then you get a notification when you have a historical column specified, you need to specify which input will be used as start date. Okay, this is going to be the start date, or not input, it's actually which field is going to be, which column is going to be used as a start date. And then there's end date. This actually, then you have to come to the second page to configure what are the value you're going to set for the data, because there's a start date and end date. So when our component runs, when there's a historical value change, we mark the current historical value as retired, but put end date as today, as of the date you specify here. So typically you can say just put it as start time. This is start time is when the job kicks off. And then the record actually also put this value into as end date, but also for the newly created data dimension record, it's going to put this as a start date. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And then we have a couple of options, advanced options, to help you to taking care of some special situations. We can ignore those white space in the dimension dimension record, And also we can do a case insensitive comparison when we compare the incoming row with the existing dimension data. This writing, this is what I just referred, is that you can immediately, once the dimension data has been generated, we can immediately write into your data warehouse database table. So for this case, I'm going to just use the dimension employee table, and then I have a way to say pretty much we automatically configure everything. Let me automatic, because that's the field name are matched because of its dimension. It's the same dimension table. Let me try to see what do we have. We don't really have much to do, but also only one thing that I need to do is, because I have the surrogate key, to use the surrogate key to put in, to use as a key. Let me back off a little bit. So in the sense of writing to the dimension table, you technically only need to mark this surrogate key. This is our surrogate key. If you go back to the general page, this is our surrogate key. So technically speaking, you only need to mark this as a key field when we're writing. But we did actually put both of them as a key field. So this combination could give you probably a better performance because the reason is you could possibly have one field that is indexed, the other field may not be indexed. So when we write data, you get a better performance. So it's not required to have both fields selected. And then we have the option to use identity insert, because we actually, the reason we need to do that is because surrogate key is an identity field. So we need to use identity insert. And then we have the option to do bulk insert. This gives you a significantly better performance if you are working with large dimension table. That is not typical, but we have the option there. Okay, and as soon as this is done, you very much just finish it. You have very much just finished the whole design of this premium slowly changing dimension component, which is, in our opinion, it's much simpler than the wizard approach. Okay, let's move on to the deck. Let's just cover a little bit about the background of the slowly changing dimension situation. As you can see, this is a sample data that we show that we have the source file, we have the supply dimension in the target data. This is our source transactional database. This is our data warehouse dimension table. So you can see we have ABCD company that is actually a same supply code as this one, but it's just a name change. Let's just move on to the next page. So based on that data, you can see there is a changed rows, there's unchanged rows and a new rows. That's one thing I forgot to mention is in our component, we do have all the output that you can we do have all the three output. So we have the output of change rows, new rows, and unchanged rows. In case you wanted to do something further, or you wanted to implement your own writing strategy, that could be the option here. Let me just finish that to quickly show you how it looks like. Okay, so typically you would only, you would most likely just only care about the change rows and the new rows. Okay, so that gives you the perspective of how this whole process works. And as we mentioned, there's out of box, you have to deal with a number of output. that is also like the wizard would generate those subsequent components, but still you should watch for those output. And but for our situations, you only have 3 output, and also we have the in place writing, so you don't. Often the case you don't really have to do anything with those output. Okay, we already did the demo, so I'm going to move to the next topic. So next topic is about incremental change. So when you push data from your source system to your target system, you want to have a good strategy to push the incremental change to the target system, because you don't want to repetitively write the same data again and again. And it could slow down your performance, but also can be very costly in certain cases. So let's talk about incremental change. Incremental change let's talk about the reading aspect. So when you read data, if you have a way to read incrementally, that would give you the best performance. The reason is the less data you process in your SSIS pipeline, the better performance you can get. So there are different strategies you can implement. You can use the CDC component, just change data capture component, that can capture change in the source component, in the source system. This component does require a CDC support on your database platform, the source system side. And also it's an enterprise feature, which means that you have to use the SQL Server Enterprise license in order to be able to use this, to leverage this feature. Typically, that carries a price tag. And this is a CDC approach. You can possibly implement some kind of manual CDC options by implementing triggers, or using a staging database table to contain those changes. That could be some sort of manual change data capture. The second option is to use timestamp field. That's a tip. It's pretty common as well. The timestamp field is that depends on the source system. It has a dependency on the source system. Your source system has to have a timestamp field in order for this approach to work. So the general idea is you get a delta change using the timestamp. But keep in mind, this timestamp approach has a risk of you could possibly miss some record, or you could possibly get some more record that you don't, than you need. The reason is, typically database transaction could take a little bit time to commit. So at the time when you read it, at the time it's committed, there is a slight chance that the record get committed before you try to read it, but the timestamp is actually old timestamp. So in most of the cases, when you use a timestamp field, my recommendation is you do a little bit of back off. So in that sense of, say, because there is a situation that you could have, as I mentioned, is when you try to read the incremental change, there is actually a pending transaction before that read happens. So, but the timestamp, it's like, it's already generated maybe in .NET code or whatever that code may be. So that timestamp is actually before your read operation. So when the transaction commit, then the data goes into the system. In this batch, you don't see that record. In this read, you don't see that record. But for the subsequent read, next read, then you have a chance that you're going to miss that record again, because that is your cutoff. That is before your cutoff time. So in the sense of you have to have a cutoff strategy, write a cutoff strategy to get this time, get those data correct. Okay, for all of the database professionals, you probably get the idea. It's a little bit tricky situation, but you have to take that into consideration. So what I want to show you today is we're using a solution that we develop here. It's called diff detector. You can use this component to scan the data and to find the difference. Let me just give you a quick demo of that, how that looks like. Let's change to incremental changes. So the incremental change is like this. So you have the source system. You have the source system, and you have two sources basically. You read from the old data source, the current data. It's called old data, and you can read the new data and then bring them in and do the comparison between the two data. So we have all the matching strategy that you can utilize. We have fuzzy match, and even including those address match, email match. So let me see. I was a little bit speaking too fast. There's no email address match. We have a first name match. Maybe we can show you what we have. We have first name match, address match, and a company name match. Also phone number match, and US zip code, and country match, and also US state match. So we give you all the matching strategy that you can identify the incremental change. So the output for this destination, for this transformation component, you have a total of 4 different output. You got a newly added rows, you got a changed rows, and deleted rows, and also unchanged rows. So then you decide what to do with those components. I put those as like after using the derived column component. The derived column is kind of my data sync. It does not do anything here. But technically speaking, this is your writing strategy. This should be your writing strategy into the Takeda system. So the only caveat I would say is the diff detector requires 4 download of your data. That's the only caveat at this moment. But otherwise, if you use this diff detection for a small amount of data or relatively large amount of data, it's still a very good option. Okay, so that's the incremental change. We talked about the timestamp approach. I didn't. Okay, let's go back to demo. I don't have that package prepared, but it's pretty simple implementation if you look at the my script on the screen. So basically, you design to have a script to read from the source system. Okay, so let's talk about a writing aspect. So writing is rather important aspect because reading can be relatively easy. A lot of time reading is probably relatively inexpensive in getting the data, but writing can be your time-consuming part. When you want to write it, you want to have a right strategy to write the incremental change. There are typically 3 different strategies you can implement. You can use a lookup transformation component to facilitate that the writing. It does. You can utilize the out-of-box lookup component, which basically is kind of similar strategy compared to what we have in the diff detector. You do lookup, then the lookup will tell you if it's a matching record or it's not a matching record. But taking into consideration that lookup it's pretty expensive and also it's limited to OLDB connections. Then the second option would be you develop a custom script to write your own upsert strategy. Actually, we have run into clients. They have developed some custom script to do the upsert. It's called upsert. Usually, we consider upsert is the incremental writing strategy. in the sense of you update existing record, but also insert those new record. So you typically leverage a SQL merge command through the OLDB or ADO.NET connections. But it can be pretty complicated to implement, can be time consuming can be pretty costly to implement, to maintain, because whenever you have something change or some maybe matching criteria you want to change, that you have to dig into those custom script and make it work. And also there's a chance that may not give you the best possible performance, because of reason is if you don't use write a batching strategy, you could write row by row, that could be really slow. Or merge command you can do relatively better than you can use the merge command. You don't have that situation, but it's a process you have to take consideration for all of the performance aspects. If you get it right, it probably works pretty good. And then we talk about the component that we have developed. The solution is to using the upsert action in our component, that you can do full upsert or full sync. And let me just show you how it looks like, because that's better than talking about that solution. So let's get the ADO.NET connection. Right now I have a ADO.NET source component that is just prepared to, this is my source. I have a table called contact2. I intentionally did that because I'm going to write to contact1, a contact table. Okay. Let's grab a premium ADO.NET connection, a destination, and then I link the two. And then I pick the same connection because I'm working with the same database. Often the case you might have a different connection. But we do support, like I just mentioned, we do support a whole list of actions that out-of-box ADO.NET destination that does not work this way. So we support update, upsert, delete, and full sync. So I'm going to write to the contact table. Notice that we do have a couple of options here. We can support a write as a bulk. Also, we support the identity insert in that case to help with to help you work with the identity field as used as a key field. So in this page, in the columns page, I can identify. So it's important that you need to specify which field is going to be used as upsert key. Then you have done this, then your component it's pretty much configured. Then we automatically handle the batch. We do have a command timeout setting, just because we do bulk insert. That sometimes bulk operation can take a bit long. Also including the merge command. The idea behind the whole upsert is we implemented the whole bulk strategy for you, and also use a SQL merge command. We automatically generate a SQL merge command based on the field that you have selected here. Okay. And let me just show you one more thing I wanted to show. It's the lookup strategy. When you write data into the target system, lookup can be painful to implement in SSIS. I don't know how many people enjoy doing the lookup, but we try to simplify, make your life easier to here. It's to offer you a lookup feature that you can configure the lookup inside of this destination right away. You don't need to do any lookup transformation. So basically, what I'm doing is we are writing to the country ID field, which is kind of foreign key field to point to country table. So what I needed to do is to specify the lookup table. Then I need to specify what value I need to put into the lookup field. Then it's obviously I'm going to select the ID field from the country table, and then I need to specify how the lookup should perform. What condition you're gonna do the lookup. So we have support for all kind of operators here. You can do, typically would do equal, right? And then you can use the input value from either input column or variable or even static value. Okay, let me just say I have my input. The country contact to table has a field called country region name. I wanted to look up based on this country region name by finding the ID and put that in country ID table. Okay, that is very much the lookup strategy you can use right away. So that's pretty much. We do have an error message here. That's something. This is a feature that we are still working in progress. It should be ready very soon. Then you have the lookup configured. Then you just run the component. Then we do all the hard work for you by providing the lookup values for you. So what I covered is just we give you the incremental write strategy without having to do much of development, and also give you the best possible performance. Note that we support. Let me try to see. We support bulk. We support identity insert. And also you can specify a batch size in case you want to do anything to do anything specific about the batch size. Otherwise, we're going to use the default SS buffer size. You can easily load millions of records easily using this approach with a very short time frame, depending on your database performance. That's pretty much what I have for this testing, the upsert strategy. And one more thing, I just forgot to mention this action. We do have a forcing option. This differs from upsert. Upsert is mostly about update or insert. What happened is the forcing is doing a little bit different from the upsert. Is if there is this record that has been deleted from source system that you want to synchronize that delete to the target system, the forcing is your call to push the change to the. So the update and insert only does new data, but it does not do any deleted data. So the forcing would synchronize with your source system, and by performing a forcing, that's the difference. Okay, let's move on to, we did already demo. So some of the time you might have to do some duplicate detection. Let's just quickly jump to the demo. You have two different strategies. You can use a fuzzy grouping component that can identify the duplicates, and also you can use our component. Let me just quickly jump to my demo. So if you use a fuzzy grouping, you basically, let me just try to see fuzzy grouping. Okay. You can connect to your source system. Looks like I might run a little bit over time. Continue, is this okay?
Oh, yes. Please continue. I'm learning lots.
Thanks so much. Okay. Appreciate that. So you can say when you use a fuzzy grouping, you can use as many fields as you want. Typically, you don't do this many fields as a matching criteria. So the basic idea is you use those fields as the matching field to identify if that's a duplicate in the target system, in the source system. Okay, I selected a few fields. More than few, it's not typical, but it just gives you the idea. So once this fuzzy grouping finished, so the basic idea is you get a couple of columns I want to emphasize. It's the key in, key out. So the idea is when you run this package, when you run this fuzzy grouping, they have output of key in, key out. When the key in equals key out, that means it's the primary field. So what I did the conditional in the conditional split component, I used the expression say if I compare key in is equals key out, that means it's a primary record. So everything that does not match the two, then it means it's a duplicate. A duplicate of the primary field, a primary record. Okay, let's run. If you run it, you can see. If I run this data flow, you can see those records. Hopefully, this should take not too long.
Well, this might be a great time for a question.
Sure.
We had a question asked by Alvaro, who asked, are ADO source and destination better performant compared to OLADB?
That is a good question. Technically, performance-wise, there shouldn't be subtle. There shouldn't be much of difference if you talking about the performance from reading perspective. Reading usually is not your bottleneck of your SS pipeline. It's usually you are not much concerned. Usually, the performance is about how your query is written. Between OLADB and ADO data, there might be subtle difference, but they are really minor, to be honest. You should not. You shouldn't really need to worry about those situations. I hope that covers the question. Okay, it takes a bit of too long, but coming back, it's it's giving me the list of 7 primary record, but we have two duplicate record. But actually, if you look at the data closely, actually we have more duplicates than it's showing. Let me try to see. Okay. Okay, that's pretty good. That's what the fuzzy grouping is doing. Okay, then we have the duplicate detection component, duplicate detector component. This is what we have developed here at Kingsway Soft. So which give you much better control of how you configure the duplicate detection. Let me see. No, I'm getting the wrong one. So I'm reading from the same source, but they say this time we can say duplicate data, and this is another sync. So what I needed to do is add the filtering. So we have a fundamentally different approach when compared to the fuzzy grouping. So you can configure this as mapping as you go, and you can put like street address. We have address match. We have all kind of matching strategy. You can have, like say, country name match. We could do country name match, and then phone number match. We could do phone number match. So that gives you the confidence of how the better confidence in terms of how the data match in terms of the duplicates. And also you can do fuzzy match in that sense. If you have something that have to do exact match, that's also fine too. So given that situation, this is it's considerably better solution compared to fuzzy grouping. And also the approach the output we have is we just tell you what the duplicates are. That's and then you can pair them. The output it's technically different from the fuzzy grouping because we put all the duplicates in this output. So when you look at it, let me try to see. My mouse was not behaving. Okay, so if I double click the metadata, you can see we have the group code. the group code is actually the code that you can rely on to identify the duplicates, and then you have scoring for all of for the quality of the code of the data coming out of this diff detector. Okay, so that's pretty much covered my my demo, and let's just conclude this for the demo and open for questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Daniel. That was great. All right, so we've got a couple more questions. One of our first questions came in from Alvaro. He asked about that debate, data warehouse versus data lake, or the new modern approaches. Uh, any feedback on that?
That's a good question. I don't claim myself to be a data warehouse expert or data lake expert. I can't really provide much input in that aspect. Data lake is it's very new to me, but a lot of time data lake does require you have a certain philosophy or certain mechanism, certain strategy to get the data right into the system as well. I have not looked into data lake too much. My apologies.
Okay, all right, no problem. And our final question here is also from Alvaro. He's very active in our question board here. He asks, what about pushing changes from the source system into staging tables before ETL starts?
That's a very good question. A lot of times you do that. Reason is you can prepare the staging database table in a way that you feel most comfortable writing to the final destination. That is pretty common. That's fine. But you just need to design your strategy and to minimize any bottleneck between, because you're going to have, when you have a staging database table, then you're going to have two jumps from source to staging and the staging to the final destination. You need to worry about those performance, and also the database schema in the staging database. That's something you need to take into consideration in your whole design. That's perfect fine, pretty common.
Okay, well, that's the end of our questions. And on the slide here, there are the links for the LinkedIn group and the Twitter account. I've also put it in chat, so make sure you get your bonus entries in for the prize drawing. So if we go to our next slide, we'll wrap it up. All right, so we want to thank everyone for attending today. This has been a great presentation by Daniel. We do have another presentation coming up next week. And that presentation is going to be titled Build Modern Driven Apps with Power BI, Common Data Service for Analytics by Matthew Roach. So please visit our website and register for that. And again, connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, also our website. Again, thank you to our presenter, Daniel Kai, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you for having me.